What I've concluded from analysis is that there are going to be a converging of social factors nationally and internationally that's going to place blacks in a permanent status of underclassship. And we anticipate by that point in time, based on all the research that's coming to us, that the next generation of whites are going to be more anti-black than they've been since the civil rights movement. 2, we anticipate by the same token about 86 million Hispanics coming into the United States and about 41 million Asians by that point in time, which is going to kick black folk out of being the minority in the society down to a minority. We've been number 2 in the society for 400 years as a group. We're going to become number 4. And if we have not gotten anything after being number 2 for 400 years, you guess what's going to happen when we become number 4.
What's up YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is your boy Evans Rayola, and guys, you know the love I have for black history, and on today's video we'll be talking about Dr. Claude Anderson, who's a well-known advocate for black economic empowerment and has appeared on various platforms including the Black Journal to spread his message. His work often focuses on the importance of building economic power within black communities, supporting black businesses, and the need for political self-determination. So in today's video, he was rather interviewed in the late 90s to talk about the Black Journal, and this is an interview that you all need to watch if you did not watch it in that time. Most of the time in his appearance on the Black Journal, Dr. Anderson has emphasized on the need for strategic planning and group economics to uplift black communities. He often discusses historical and systematic barriers that have hindered black economic progress and argues for the need to create parallel systems of economic power within the community to ensure long-term sustainability and success, And he advocates for black people to pool resources, invest in their own communities, and support each other in building wealth. Dr. Anderson also stresses the importance of understanding and navigating the political landscape to protect and advance the interests of the black communities. So guys, I want us to watch this video of his interview in the late 90s. We'll get to learn a lot from this. Let's watch this, guys.
We're joined now, as promised, by Dr. Claude Anderson, author of the book Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice. And Dr. Anderson, I'd like to say once again thank you for joining us on this edition of the Journal.
Daryl, thank you again for inviting me back to your show.
We are hearing that people are responding to this book intensely, perhaps would be the best word I could think of. The book is being bought by the dozens, literally, because people are starting to, I guess, identify with some of the concepts you're bringing up in the book. What we get in this book is a historic context for the situation African Americans or blacks, whichever term is politically correct this week, find themselves in this country, whether it be economic, political, whether it's the social pathology that we suffer from in this country, in our neighborhoods, or whatever it might be. Your book addresses it. It addresses it succinctly, and it addresses it with a scholarly and informational background. I commend you on the work in the book, and I'd like to ask you, what was the genesis for the book?
Daryl, there are probably a number of things. First of all, I could say there was a dissatisfaction with what was happening politically in this country as it was affecting black folk. I could say there was a response to the book The Bell Curve, which proclaimed that black folk were genetically inferior. And what I want to do is tell black Americans that you're not genetically inferior, that you've been socially engineered into your present predicament around this world. And I also could say that it was a response to the contract with white America, and to tell black folk that that contract is not new, that it was first issued in 1638 by the Maryland colony, and nothing has changed, and that black folk are still fighting for self-sufficiency and competitiveness in this country, and that we must come together quickly or what risk being a permanent underclass in the society.
One of the alarming predictions you make in the book is along those lines. You mentioned that blacks will be pretty much a permanent underclass in America by the year 2015. Why the year 2015?
2015 because what I've concluded from analysis is that there are going to be a converging of social factors nationally and internationally that's going to place blacks in a permanent status of underclassship. And one, we anticipate by that point in time, based on all the research that's coming to us, that the next generation of whites are going to be more anti-black than they've been since the Civil Rights Movement. Two, we anticipate by the same token about 86 million Hispanics coming into the United States and about 41 million Asians by that point in time, which is going to kick black folk out of being the minority in the society down to a minority. We've been number 2 in the society for 400 years as a group. We're going to become number 4. And if we have not gotten anything after being number 2 for 400 years, you guess what's going to happen when we become number 4. Because at that point in time, all the new groups coming into America, they're coming in higher than we are because this country operates off of a preferential acceptance program, which means that groups are coming in based on skin color. They're going from the lightest down to the darkest. Light, yellow, brown, black. And that's what our immigration laws are based on. And black folk will not be able to penetrate through those groups to get to the white society when that happens, because those groups owe us nothing. They don't understand our problems, and they are competitive with us, and we don't begin to be a little more aggressive about being in a competitive posture. They're going to eat our lunches.
One of the things that I should mention right here is the fact that the book is filled with tables, graphs, charts, and historical accounts of how such discrimination, prejudice, and racism, economically, politically, and socially, were engineered into our system, literally codified as a way blacks would be treated in this country. So that when we hear you talking about blacks becoming a permanent underclass, or we hear you talking about the inherent racism in the immigration system in the United States, you're not talking off the top of your head, are you?
No, no. See, the first immigration law was put in place immediately after the Revolutionary War in 1790, which declared this was to be a white country, and there was a zero quota placed on black folk. That zero quota stayed in place until about 1965. Based on the 1880 immigration laws, it moved up a slight bit, less than 1/2 of 1%, and to allow more blacks to come in. But in starting in 1965, it went up to 1/2 of 1%. That's why blacks are in a minority class in this country. That's why you cannot get Haitians into the country, because the larger society is extremely fearful of blacks getting a numerical dominance. And they built a quota system into the country, even in our immigration process, and into our to make sure that black folk do not constitute a threat.
And of course, I should say, if we look at the historical record, it becomes clear that blacks certainly didn't work to engineer their own demise in America. It was pretty much a construct based on second-class, third-class status that we had in society as the labor class, the free labor class, basically. You address that quite extensively in this book.
Yeah, we were always, see, we've operated off the base of a 3-tiered structure. We had the elite class, or the aristocratic class, then we had the management class, which was made up of poor whites, and we had the working class, which was black folks. See, black folk were the working class, contrary to the popular myth up until about the Civil Rights Movement. Blacks were the working class. Now, after the Civil Rights Movement and blacks became obsolete, now poor whites and some of the other whites are claiming that they are the working class in this country. But they were not. They were supposed to be the management class up until that point in time. Blacks were the labor class in the society.
It's interesting that you bring that up, but wouldn't it be fair to look through the tunnel of history and see that certainly poor whites have worked hard in this country and have had to come up through some of the same kinds of tyranny that blacks have experienced in America?
Oh, yes, they have. You will always have some poor whites, because that's a class issue. That's not a race issue. See, if it had been a race issue instead of a class issue, then why didn't you have poor whites out there picking cotton along with blacks? Why weren't they enslaved? Why didn't you have poor Indians? Why didn't you have poor Asians? Why didn't you have poor Hispanics out there in the field with black folk? It was a racial issue, not a class issue.
When you take a look at what's wrong, and certainly the book does cover a lot of what's wrong with black America, is it fair to say that at this time in our history, economically speaking, that blacks can, as we have been told to, pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps?
Yes, you can. With what you do have, you don't have very much of anything. The wealth and power, resources in this society have been frozen since 1790. It has not changed barely one iota. Okay, that's for instance. Let's go back to 1860. On the eve of the Civil War. On the eve of the Civil War, 5% of the American population, the white population, controlled 24.6% of the wealth in the country. Now, after a Civil War, World War I, World War II, a Depression, Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Civil Rights Movement, it went up 1 point. Okay, so then it's 24 point something like 6. Okay, now At the same time, on the eve of the Civil War, black folk at that time had 1% of the wealth. Black folk now, after that same point in time, all those social turmoils and international upheavals, black folk now up to a little less than 1% still. That means we moved up less than 1/2 of 1% after all that turmoil in the world. So obviously the wealth is frozen in this society. Whites now control almost 100%, Daryl, of all the wealth, the income, the power, the resources, the privileges, the businesses, and all levels of government. Black folk do not have the sufficient wherewithal to be able to manage their lives and compete. Now, contrary to what anybody tells you, we cannot compete because we don't have it. It's not a question of that we are genetically inferior or inferior as human beings. It's that you do not have the appropriate tools and devices and controls and mechanisms to be able to compete with other groups.
But certainly we can look and see in this society where blacks have matriculated economically, educationally, politically, there's some advancement.
Oh yes, most definitely there's some, because there's always going to be an exception to the rule. I mean, I've heard people ask me on different shows, Dr. Anderson, if things are that bad for black folk, well, how do you explain Bill Cosby and Oprah and Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan? What does that mean? What it means is white racism is not perfect. That's what it means. You'll always have exceptional blacks for a number of reasons. First of all, you'll have some exceptional blacks simply because they defy and beat mathematical probabilities, point one. Point two, you will have some blacks who will survive and do extremely well simply because whites want to be able to demonstrate that the society is not totally shut out against black folk, locked up against black folk. And thirdly, you will find there'll be some exceptional blacks who have been picked or chosen by some of the white power structures, said this is my black, this is a special black. Now in history we had a special name for those individuals that I talked about in the book. Those what we call some ultra-conservative blacks who see things strictly through the eyes of white folk, and they've learned how to subordinate themselves and to try their best to protect and maintain the status quo, and for that they're rewarded by the white society.
Well, they've matriculated through the educational system, they've moved up through the political system, they've survived social penury, and they've gone on to achieve something. Isn't that worth something?
Oh, most definitely. But see, but unless it's tied back and networked back into the larger black body, it has very little impact on black folk.
Why do you think it is that blacks then do not tie their successes individualistically as they may be viewed back into the group?
Because black folk have bought into a lot of the basic premises in the Constitution, which says that to be successful, it must be based on what an individual can achieve in and of his own. That is not true. At the same time, black folk were being subjected as a group in this country when the Constitution was being drafted and implemented and approved. You had something like about 3 million black folk who were subjected to slavery. So, and see, whites have never as a group been enslaved in this nation. So they had a right to be able to go out and experiment and achieve, and as far as their God-given rights were given. Allow them to. But see, racism means race. It comes from the word group, and blacks are still perceived as a group in this country. We went into racism, we went into slavery as a group. We went into Jim Crowism as a group. We can only come out as a group. And individualism has no significance unless it's not tied back into trying to help that group come out of that deplorable condition.
So family, when the interview started, he was asked the genesis of the Black Journal. Why is he pushing for the Black Journal? Why did he write the Black Journal? And he says it was because of the dissatisfaction of the political environment against the black folks. We all know what is happening in the US, man. How we are not privileged as black men and women to be in that country. How the system has constantly made us to be the bottom class each and every time. He was dissatisfied with what the system in the US was doing. The political class did not care about black people. This was his genesis for doing the Black Journal. And number two, he says it was a response to the book that blacks were genetically inferior. I've had who's this scholar, there's this doctor, I think it's Dr. Pastor Price. He spoke about genetics, and he said there's no way that black people are genetically inferior, because he mentioned in one of his works that if a black guy or a black lady has a kid with a white man, the kid is always black, because many a times the kid is always a colored person, and a colored person is just more of a black person than white. So there's no way you guys can tell us that we are genetically inferior. This was the second reason as to why he wrote the Black Journal. Then the third reason is contract with America. Nothing has changed. You know, constantly black people have always had a contract with the white America, with the white imperialist, and the contract has always been putting us down. You know, them being the upper class and us being the lower class. You know, us being stopped on the road each and every time by police officers. You know, black men being gunned down by uniformed officers when really the officers did not need to use the guns. You know, these are the genesis as to why the Black Journal was pushed by Dr. Anderson. And Dr. Anderson said that he envisioned, rather, because this interview was done in the late 90s, he envisioned that after 2015, there'll be a problem in the US. Remember, right now we are in the 2024. And guys, some of these things that he envisioned are actually happening. Let's listen to them. He says that he has predicted with research that from 2015, blacks will be on a permanent underclass in the society. He believed that the future of the generations will be the future of white generations will be so anti-black than other generations ever. He believes that after 2015, the future of white generation will be so anti-black, you know. And he proceeds to explain why the white generation will be so anti-black. He says he believes that after 2015, 86 million Hispanics will enter the US, 41 million Asians will enter the US, and now black folks will be kicked from majority to minority in the society. You all know black folks are the second majority after whites, but after the Hispanics and the Asians are brought into place, black folks will be the minority. They'll be the least when it comes to numbers. They'll be kicked off from the majority to the minority in the society. The immigration of the US, he says, this also is prediction in regards to 2015, why blacks will be a permanent underclass from 2015. He says the immigration of the US will only admit people based on their skin color. And this is true, man. This is happening. Let me tell you, Africans are really struggling to get to the US. But believe you me, any other country that has white people can easily access the US because they are trying to reduce the number of immigrants in that country. They are trying to reduce the number of black population in that country so that they may be in control. What does that tell us? The white supremacists are afraid of black dominance in the US. They are afraid that black men and women can take over, and that is their end. They always want to be on top. They want us to be the lower class while they are the upper class. So this was a prediction by Dr. Anderson that after 2015, there'll be a lot of problems in the US. We are in 2024 right now. Most of the things that he mentioned are actually happening right now. You know, it's difficult for us black people to get into the US, which is true. I'm not sure of the Hispanics and the Asians, but what I'm sure is that a lot of white folks are being admitted into the US than black folks. Then he proceeds and said their biggest fear is black dominance. Then he's asked a question about black excellence, you know, and he says that for black people to be successful in the US, that shows you that white racist guys are just not racist enough. You know, white racism is not perfect. Then he says that black people who make it, black people who are successful in the US, number one, they defy all the odds and beat mathematical possibilities. You know, then white wants to demonstrate that the society has not totally shut down on blacks. You know, you look like people like Rihanna, Nicki Minaj. You say that these are black people who've made it big in the US. He explains and says that white people want to demonstrate that the society has not totally shut down on blacks. Then he says for the last point that some are chosen by white power structures. I really love the works of Dr. Anderson. He explains everything very well. You want to go check the full video of his speech. And guys, he inspires me a lot because he speaks of issues that are actually affecting black people. Not many of us can do what he's doing in this space. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to my channel for amazing black stories in Africa and in the diaspora. I am currently doing a series on black history and you do not want to miss any video. Go from my video list, the last like 6 videos I've been doing thorough black history. I want you to go check out those videos and we get to learn together. So guys, thank you so much. Kindly comment down below. Let me know what you think about this specific video. And guys, kindly, from the bottom of my heart, I really beg you guys to continue subscribing to the channel. We are on the road currently to 20k subscribers. And remember, the goal is 100k subs, man. Thank you so much. See you all in the next video. Bye bye.